Welcome to the Accidental Experts podcast. I'm your host, Bryce Hamilton. I'm a licensed clinical social worker and a child and family therapist. I have been in practice for over 15 years, and I'm also a mom of 4. So I know the challenges both professionally and personally. I'm so glad that you're here today to grow your parenting toolbox. Please come as you are and be ready to learn. My goal is to make you the accidental expert so that you can raise healthy humans. Hi, everyone. Welcome back. I'm so glad you're here today. Today, we're going to talk about how to build confidence in our kids and teens. This is such an important topic because I think we're all on a journey. And we have a special guest today. Her name is Kellie Green, and she is the Director of Children and Family Health at CareSource in Kansas City. She's an LCPC therapist, and she also has over 20 years of experience in healthcare and child welfare, with this goal of driving positive change in families and kids. With that, let's get to our episode.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let's talk about when we're talking about confidence, let's just define what this means. What are we meaning when we're looking at confidence?
Yeah. First of all, love this topic area. Confidence, first of all, is so important for, all of us to be able to feel good about ourselves and achieve our goals, but also with what we're facing right now in our culture in America today with the youth mental health crisis, I think confidence and talking about how we instill this in our children this is a really critical time to be talking about this topic. And so really when I think about confidence, I just really think this is how we see ourselves.
Mhm.
It's believing in ourselves more specifically. And it's really that inner self-assurance that we have that tells us, yes, we can do something. Yes, I can keep going. Yes, I can achieve something. Yes, I can overcome barriers or
Mhm.
deal with challenging situations. And when you have that ability, then it allows you to take risks and work through difficult situations, and
Mhm.
it really builds resilience. And
Yes.
resiliency is so important for all of us because you know what, sometimes things are hard, and day-to-day life has challenges, but then also life in itself has big challenges, and we
Right.
need to be able to be resilient and believe in ourselves to be able to get through those things.
Absolutely. Yeah, I heard a definition one time of resilience that I loved that was talking about like what resilience really is that in life we have the ups and downs, and it's how quickly you get up from the down. And I was like, "Oh yes, that's like perfect," right? Because we are going to sometimes be knocked to the ground. Like sometimes the wave of whatever is happening in life is going to be really hard. And the resilience is the part of us getting back up. And then that's intermingled with the confidence of believing that we can get back up, because sometimes you've got to believe in something before you actually are able to do it, right? A lot of times we're like, okay, I can do well on this test, right? And we haven't done well on the test, right? Or believe that we can make a new friendship or apply for a job or right, like take those risks. So yeah, that's a good place
Or
to be.
even trying something new.
Yes.
Not only does confidence help us, or resiliency helps us get up after we've been kind of knocked down, but also, every day, I think we all have to try something new, even if it's just, it's kind of early in the morning here. I'm thinking like, I had this package of food that I'd never bought before and I couldn't get it open. And like sometimes you're just like, oh, I just want to like put it aside and worry about it later. But it's like just even teeny tiny minuscule moments like that
Mhm.
every day that I don't know how to do this, but you know what? I think I can figure it out. I'm going to
Mhm.
try for a few more minutes and I know I can do this. And,
Yeah.
we encounter those things, multiple times throughout the day.
Yeah. Well, and something you just said triggered something in me, and that for me, oftentimes I am a really independent person, and so like I like to do a lot of things on my own, and so for me, I know the more confident I feel, the more willing I am to ask for help, right? That I don't have to do all the things by myself because we don't. I like remind myself, but I also say this in my practice of like, there's no reward that you get for doing everything on your own. Like nobody at the end of your life is like, okay, Bryce was so amazing because she never let anybody help her with anything. Like no one's like shouting that from the rooftops, right? So like for me, confident is also knowing that like I'm still good even when I ask for help. And I think that's something I try to instill in my kids too.
Yeah. Like, I think that is such an important point. We should we should kind of highlight it again, especially for parents or caregivers, even mother figures. I think today in our culture, moms in particular, or, grandmothers, aunts, aunties, we really take this pride of like, I'm a working mom, I have kids, I'm doing everything all the time, I'm everything to everyone. I know I feel like that sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And it's sometimes self-inflicted. I don't want to ask for help, or I feel like I can do this all on my own. And that's probably what's leading me to be tired and cranky and burned out. I just think as a culture today, we put
Mm-hmm.
a lot on caregivers.
Yes.
And then we have not set up a system that encourages people to ask for help when they need it and actually receive the help that would actually help them. And so I just think that that's important because we need to ask for help. Like good parents and caregivers know when to ask for help and they know who
Mm-hmm.
to ask for help from. And that's, I think, part of a confidence issue, right? Like I'm confident enough to know that I can handle things on my own sometimes,
Yeah.
but I'm also confident to know that I need to ask for help sometimes, and that's okay. And that's the best thing for my kids.
Yeah. And I think it's like, yeah, I can do a lot or most things by myself, but at what cost? Right? So I think that's also the piece of like valuing my time and like knowing that like I don't know everything about everything. So I do, lean on my kid's pediatrician for things to ask them questions. And even if I'm like thinking like, well, will they think that's silly? No, they're not going to think that's silly because I know that if somebody asks me a question about something as a therapist or as a mom, I'm not going to think it's silly. I'm going to be like, oh, this is what I do for that. Or, this is how I handled that problem. Or this is what I would advise you do. Or have you thought about this or whatever? Like, I think we all are willing to help each other, but it's just that I think you're right. We get in our own way. Sometimes we're our own worst enemy
Yeah.
of that part, but we also have to be modeling this for our kids of asking for help on things.
Yes.
And I think that part is we want to do that part. Like we want our kids to be able to ask for help and get what they need, but sometimes it's hard because we're modeling, I'm doing everything myself. And I see that even in my daughters sometimes of like they're stressed about something and I'm like, what is going on? And then I like can see the situation. I'm like, oh, you're trying to do all of this yourself and you don't have to. Like, ask me for help. I want to help. Ask your dad for help, right? Ask a friend for help, right? Like you can ask your friend's mom. Like there's all these resources that we have. And so I think it's also confident in knowing that like we can ask for help and that we will mostly be received warmly. And if we're not, ask somebody else, right? Like learn something about that and make a decision about what that felt like or meant for you, and then find somebody else. Like don't give up. I think that's also the confidence piece is like when you know something's not right with your kids or you know that this solution is not the right solution is having the confidence and like the mom gut kind of thing of like something's not right here, like keep pushing for that. And that's confidence. So,
Absolutely.
so many ways to like be viewing confidence, whether it's for our children, for us, or us as a collective like society.
Well, yeah, and I think, parents modeling, you brought up modeling a few times. Yeah, parents modeling when to ask for help, and parents modeling confidence in themselves.
Mm-hmm.
I had something for a while. I was trying to teach my kids about negative self-talk and how to
Mm-hmm.
positively self-talk to themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And then, the very next day something happened. I'm like, oh, I forgot the beach towels. Oh, what a stupid move. And my kids would be like, Mom, don't talk negative about yourself. And I thought, oh,
Mm-hmm.
that was a moment that I was not modeling or what I was trying to teach them. And
Yeah.
so modeling confidence in ourselves and our parenting ability. And then that, modeling is a very, very strong tool in the parental toolbox.
Oh, absolutely. And I love that your kids caught you, right? They were
Yeah.
like, hey, this isn't what you said. And it's cool because that means they got it. Right.
Yeah.
So like I try to like embrace those moments when it's like I am gonna mess up as a parent. and
Yeah.
I'm going to say things or do things that are not what I'm trying to teach my kids because I'm still human, right? Like, but for them to say like, "Oh, we didn't," like we've started saying at our house, I started this a couple of years ago, was like, good things are always happening to us. So like
Yeah.
every day I say, good things are always happening to us. And like, so sometimes I'll be in a rush to leave and they're like, "Hey, you didn't say the thing. We haven't said our thing," right? Like, and so it's like, oh, I love this because it means something to them. So it's like, it's good when our kids do catch us not doing what we want to do and model for them. And then we get an opportunity to model because it means something to them. Okay, so let's jump into this idea of, I think confidence is so complex. Obviously, we've spent several minutes talking about just what it means and all the different areas. Do you think it's something that we achieve and then we're like there, like we've met the confidence threshold and then we like kind of maintain that? Or do you think it varies? Like, how does that work? I think this is a
Uh,
tricky part about confidence.
Absolutely. I think, innately people are born unique and just born with a certain level. It's that nature nurture conversation. So I think, through nature, certain people are just more confident than others. But also, I think most of it is probably nurture and how, the positive parental or adult figures in their life. How did you talk? How are they talked to? What voices do they have that are telling them, "Oh man, that was awesome," or "Oh, I'm I can't figure anything out." And
Hmm.
so I think really like us as parents and caregivers, we really have that opportunity to build confidence in our young people as well as schools and other adults and extracurricular, all these people that our children have in their lives really have these capabilities to build confidence in youth.
Hmm.
And it might hit a certain level, but I do think on a day-to-day basis our confidence wavers depending on what other things we have going on in our life. Certainly there are things that are happen that kind of shake our confidence sometimes, and that's
Sure.
where it's so important to have that support network of individuals that we know are on our side. We know there are our cheerleaders, and we know that if we're having one of those down days where we don't feel confident, we don't believe in ourselves, that we have those folks in our lives that say, I see you as this. You say you see yourself as this, but I really see this in you. I see these positive qualities in you. And I think that's really important to be able to handle those days where maybe we're not as confident as we would like to be.
Yeah. And I sometimes when I'm working with kids in my practice on confidence, I remind them like grandparents can have low confidence too. Cause I think there's like a thing about like grandparents where they see them and they're just like living life and in their mind, most of the time for kids, like it's like everything's good, right? Like maybe they're retired, they're able to kind of do what they want. So they're like, everything's great, right? But I'm like, no, actually, grandparents, right? Like your grandparents may have days where they feel kind of rotten, like things are just not going right. And they're like, I really stink at this, or I failed at that. And then there's other days where they feel good. And I think that helps to normalize the ebb and flow of like, we can have hard days and then bounce back. We don't have to stay in that place of like, we can use those supportive people, like you said. So that's a good perspective to have. So why do you think having confidence is important for our children and teens? Like, why does this topic matter?
Yeah, it matters so much, especially with what we're seeing right now, where, we have 18, 19, 20-year olds who are not confident living on their own. Well, let's put the economic times aside, but, we have young people that aren't confident to go out and make relationships or
Hmm.
try new things. And so it's really important to focus on confidence, try to build that in teens, because when we as caregivers and adults have confidence in our young people, the world is their oyster. They
Yeah.
can accomplish whatever they set their mind to. I truly believe that. And our young people would have the confidence to try new things, to work through hard situations. And so without those abilities, we don't build resiliency.
Mhm.
And so what, when sometimes, in when I have seen clients or, even in my personal life, sometimes people seem sometimes to have some more of a negative attitude, or maybe they've had a lot of awful things happen to them in life, and then
Mhm.
so that's led them, they haven't had that confidence, they haven't had those positive childhood experiences that maybe other kids have, and it leads them to feel like everything is always wrong, or they're kind of a victim, like all these bad things always happen to me. And
Mhm.
although certainly that could have been true in the past doesn't necessarily mean it's true for the future.
Mm-hmm.
And so, building confidence in our youth is really going to be important to help them overcome life's barriers, overcome hard things that inevitably will happen to all of us.
Yeah.
And that's really what helped them grow and thrive across the lifespan.
Yeah. I love something that you just said, which was us having confidence in our kids, right? So we've talked about our kids having confidence, us having confidence, us modeling confidence, but that piece of us believing that our kids can do it, especially, I mean, for everybody, right? But especially for teens, right? Like that is such a hard transition time of like, we go from being little kids and literally being treated like a little kid, probably, right? And then all of a sudden something happens one day and you're like in high school and everybody, like you're 14 and now everybody expects you to act like an adult. But like last year, you were a kid and now you're an adult. And excuse me, obviously you're not really an adult yet, but like it's that thought, and that's scary. And there's so many things, and I think our kids their bodies are growing, their brains are growing socially, academically, like all these pressures. And as a parent, just believing we like in our kids, like believing they can do it. Like, I believe you can do this. Like, I believe in you. Like, that is powerful.
When I reflect back on the days with my kids, like we got, just like any other parent, we have good days and then we have, days that are a little bit more challenging, just like
Yeah.
everybody.
Yeah.
And I realized that the days where I'm more positive and relaxed and confident in their abilities and what they can
Hmm.
do are the days that are better for us as a family. And, I have to be honest, and I feel like this is like a little parenting secret, is 100% of the time, do I always believe what I say about them? Like, "Oh, you're gonna go to school and have a great day," or like, "I know you're gonna make a new friend today. I just know it." I mean, a lot of times when I say that, I 100% believe that. But in my opinion, just like work life and other things, sometimes you have to fake it till you make it, and
Yeah.
sometimes you just have to give them those positive affirmations, and I was wrong all along. I say something to them like, "I know you're gonna do this," even where I'm like,
Mhm.
I think so.
Yeah.
I
Like, I
want."
want you to make the soccer team, but
Yes.
you may not.
Yeah,
Like,
because
yes.
I can't predict the future, but
Exactly.
and then they come home and they tell me they did it. And I'm like, "Oh my, you did it. See, I knew you were gonna do it." Now, yeah, again,
Mhm.
a lot of times I really believe that. Sometimes though, I'm skeptical. And then that is when they rise to the occasion and
Mhm.
and you know, reinforce my points all the time. And so I just think that's really important. Like, or even maybe it's not about them, it's about me. Maybe I'm having a low confidence day. And that's why sometimes I just have to suck it up, fake it, and fake it a little bit. And
Mhm.
and then it becomes true
Yeah.
because that mindset really gets you in that direction. And I just
Mhm.
think, I don't ever want to be a person that seems disingenuous or isn't telling whole truths. But
Yeah.
sometimes I think, on off days, we just have to like play like it's not an off day. And
Yeah.
and I think that's really when we give kids opportunity, a lot of times they're successful. And we just have
Yeah.
to give them opportunities.
Yeah. Yeah, to believe in their abilities. And I think on
Yeah.
what you were saying of like, like sometimes we have to like lean into wanting this, willing it to be a good day, right? And we can talk to our kids about that. Like, I'm having a really hard morning. This morning really was hard for me, but this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to tell myself today is going to be a great day, or good things are always happening to us. And I'm going to see where that takes me, because I'm going to really, really try to lean into this, even though this morning's been really hard, or I know we can have a better day. Like sometimes the mornings, it's like, it's really my failure to plan, right? Like my kids are just doing their thing the way that they're doing it, and probably how they do it most days, right? But as a parent, I need to plan for the hard day to be today or every day, so that I have enough time to get us, so that that doesn't stress me out, because I hate being late to school. And so I think that part of being like, okay, so like this moment, this was really hard. Getting shoes on really stunk today, right? Like we did not do well with this. That's okay. I'm going to own my part, right? Like, okay, we got this. Like, but we're going to have a better day. Like, this is not the defining part of our day. Like, I know it's going to go uphill for this, like, or like, we're going to be in a better spot. So I think that part is so important too, of like, giving our kids a chance, that builds confidence. It also builds confidence in us. Like our kids having confidence in us as parents is also an important piece too. So what do you think gets in the way of having confidence? Like what are the barriers here?
Well, I think, as parents and caregivers, it is our job to keep kids safe, right? And however, there is a bit of a well, is sometimes we go too far on this. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
It is our job to keep kids safe. Absolutely. But if we go too far in that direction, we are too overprotective. It
Mm-hmm.
also does young people a disservice. So it's a very delicate balance. If we try to solve all of their issues, all of their peer conflict, if we try to remove all barriers for them and fix everything, or set everything up, or call the teacher when something goes wrong, like if we're doing all of that, we're not giving them opportunities to do it themselves when most
Mm-hmm.
time they probably can.
Mm-hmm.
When I think about my own life, I don't know, it must have been a few months ago. I knew in the morning I was going to have to drive my husband to work right around at the time it was to get ready for school. And it was just like a quick 20-minute drive, but I wanted to test to see if my kids could get themselves up, make themselves breakfast, get themselves ready, and be absolutely ready to walk out the door when I came back home. And I thought, oh, they've never done this before. I usually do all of this for them. I'm not sure if they're going to be able to accomplish this.
Mm-hmm.
And so I said, this is how we're going to do it. Step one, or, you set your alarm, and then these are the things you need to accomplish by the time I get home. And so when I pulled into the driveway, I thought, I don't know, we'll see where they're at. And you know what? They got up on time. They were dressed appropriately. They had made themselves a breakfast, a healthy one at that. They were ready to
Amazing.
go. And I just thought, why? Of course they did. Like I need,
Mm-hmm.
like, they're great. Like I gave them an opportunity to do something new and they did it. And you know what? I praised them a ton, and you could tell by their
Mm-hmm.
body language, by their attitude, that they felt so good about themselves. And then I thought, wow, every day that I don't allow them to do these things on their own, I am
Mm-hmm.
taking opportunities away from them to be confident, to master tasks that they will need for life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so, I just really think that when we parent our young people in a bubble and we do not allow them to take risks, manageable risks, we don't allow them to try new things, we don't allow them that autonomy,
Mm-hmm.
and especially like as we get to the older kids, if we lean still more on that helicopter parenting, that type of parenting is correlated to more anxiety disorders and lack of confidence.
Yeah.
And, really what I want to say about that too is that is not your fault as a parent. If you have experienced days like that or done things like that, that's okay. It's not your fault. Happens to me too. We've created this culture that has made it um nearly impossible to give kids autonomy and to let them go explore new things on
Mm-hmm.
themselves and do things on their own, because we're judging other parents. Oh, I saw this kid riding his bike half a mile away from the home, or I these kids are always outside, no one's ever watching them, and they should be doing all this.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just feel like um really, and I'm seeing this on a national level with some of the research that's coming out, national experts were saying, really we need more unsupervised time for youth to play with each other and navigate conflicts. I mean, I'll go to another personal story. I work from home. My office is right outside the front window, and I'll send them outside to play with the neighbors. And I just love that for them, that we're in a neighborhood that there's other kids that they can all play outside safely. But I'll start hearing yelling and screaming, and I know it's my kids. And I'll think, oh gosh, they're fighting again. Oh my gosh, what do the neighbors think? I better go diffuse this.
Mm-hmm.
And then it takes everything in my being not to walk out there,
Yeah.
because I want to fix it and I want them to stop screaming, and I don't want all the other neighbors to judge me.
Mm-hmm.
But then I think, no, like they need to learn how to get along with people. They need to learn to get along with people they don't like. They need to learn to navigate conflict,
Yeah.
and they need to figure this out on their own. I can't be there for everything. And
Mm-hmm.
it's not unsafe. And so we need to let so I probably went off on a huge tangent
No,
there, but
you're good. Yeah.
it's allowing young people to have those experiences to be able to to really do things on their own.
Yeah, trust themselves, right? So it's like,
Absolutely.
I mean, I think, I was actually talking about this week with a family was that, when we were kids, we did go, I mean, like we would go play. I mean, I don't know that my mom knew explicitly where I was. Like it wasn't like a secret, but it was like there were certain places in our neighborhood that I stayed. I never left the neighborhood. Like there were rules that we followed.
She
But
gave you a boundary to
yes,
stay within,
yes.
but
And we
flexibility within that.
Yes. So there was an expectation I would be at like one of these three houses. If I wasn't, then I would have to call. And so like I knew my parents' number and I would say, hey, we're going to this place. And then that was fine. Like she would say, okay. And we had a lot of autonomy. I don't remember exactly how old I was, but I think I was definitely younger than what we would probably feel comfortable with now. And I do think we know more. And so sometimes those things in some ways are helpful, but also they're not, right? Like, so it's this balance of like, if you live in a safe place, if you, right, can you let your kids do that? Because I think for me as a parent, it's also exhausting to feel like the only time my kids play with anybody that's not a family member or like a family friend or whatever that's like at our house more frequently is a scheduled play date. And that is exhausting. Like it is so tiring to try to schedule all the things because I'm working, I'm doing all these other things, like, but I want my kids to play. And so it's like this balance of like who's available when, and everybody has a busy schedule and there's not a lot of free play happening.
Well, and that's really what's going wrong in our society right now. That's leading to the mental health crisis that youth are facing today, is that there is not enough free, unstructured playtime, even in schools. And, I think, naturally my first inclination is like, oh, well, I watch the news, it's not safe, makes me feel uncomfortable. But really, back in the 80s and 90s when we were playing outside, crime rates were actually higher back then than they are right now. And so, again, I'm not advocating for like complete free for all, but
Sure.
like when we don't give kids some levels of independence, that is going to bite us later on down the road.
Mm-hmm.
And, especially when I think about when I tell my kids to do maybe a new task or something
Mm-hmm.
like that might have a couple steps. Sometimes I'll say exactly what steps, get this specific dish and then put it, here and do that. Like I'll give them exact details. And then I think, why am I doing this? Like I could just tell them to do the task and then they can figure out the steps on their own. Like they don't have to do it exactly the way I do.
Sure.
And then I think I'll also, we're seeing more young people right now being afraid to try things because they're afraid they're going to mess it up.
Yes.
I've witnessed young people at restaurants who were, early, preteens that wouldn't order themselves and talk to the waitress because they're scared that they're mess up because their parents do everything for them. And and I, again, if you're one of those parents, that's okay. It's, our culture is kind of driven us in this direction and it's really hard to break free from that.
Mm-hmm.
But when we need to be able to have young people that know it's okay if you mess up and that
Yes.
mistakes happen all the time and we learn from them. And
Mm-hmm.
you know what? I mess up every day. I mess something up,
Sure.
and that's how I learn and I get better. But when we've done everything for them and we've monitored them so closely that they are not willing or feel comfortable to try new things or take even the smallest little risk,
Mm-hmm.
that again is doing them a disservice.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, it seems like the things that get in the way of having high confidence is probably sometimes us as parents or like adults in our society of like having expectations of perfectionism, maybe not on purpose, right? But like also just the judgment to other people, right? Like, really, it doesn't matter. Something I say often and that I've noticed in my life, this is just an observation, not something clinically that I've been told, but something I notice about how happy people is, you know what? They don't care what other people are doing.
Yeah.
Happy people just don't care because they're not even thinking about that, right? Like you see something odd or you see something whatever and you're just like you move on, right? So it's I like if I find myself being critical of other things, I'm like, okay, something's not balanced here for me, right? So I go back to the me, not the other people part of like, why do I have such an issue with that or whatever? I mean, like sometimes there are things that are maybe not um okay because of something I know, right? Like, but that's rare. That would be such a small portion of that. And me just trying to live life, not observing or really caring what other people are doing. I feel happier of that. Like it's self-fulfilling, right? Like if I feel happy, I don't care. And then I don't, I feel happy, right? Because I'm not worrying about these things that I don't have control over either. So I think it's that those pieces. And then also just like letting our kids try stuff, like building their own confidence, having opportunities to take risks. And that's such a good perspective of like, that does definitely get in the way. Yeah.
I think even in the day to day,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you feel like this as a mom, but I know I do. Sometimes it's just a lot faster if I do it myself. Like shoe tying, oh my gosh, like getting out on the door at a timely fashion in the morning, right? And when it's
Yes.
like, oh, I'll just tie them, I'll just tie them.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have time today, I'll just do it.
Yes.
What message does that send our kids?
Mm-hmm.
How does that make them feel? Mom thinks I can't do it. Mom thinks I can't do it fast enough. Mom thinks she can
Mm-hmm.
do it better. Mom thinks her way is the right way. And that does that build confidence in kids?
Yeah. No.
Absolutely not. And, again, this is something I struggle with on a
Mm-hmm.
daily basis.
Yeah.
And I'm even asking myself, what else am I doing for my kids that they are completely capable of doing that I haven't
Oh,
even thought of?
absolutely.
Like
Yes.
this year for summer camp, they eat school lunch during the school, but they're packed. We have a packed lunch for summer camp, and I thought, why the heck am I spending my time packing this lunch? Well, I'll tell you why, because I wanted to get it done quick. I don't want all the food to be messed up and stuff not put away right. And I want to ensure they have a healthy lunch. And I don't want them to take my most expensive food items,
And
Um,
potentially not eat it and throw it in the trash. Yes. Yes.
of course, like don't take that
Yes.
expensive peach and throw it in the trash. I'll eat it. But then I thought, what the heck? Like, first of all,
Mm-hmm.
let's get real. I could use a few things checked off my to-do list that I don't have to handle.
Mm-hmm.
And they need to gain these competency skills and gain confidence. And so they started, packing their lunch. And I have been blown away. I just been surprised that they've been choosing healthy things.
Yeah.
I mean, they might needed a couple reminders to clean up their area after they get done making their sandwich,
Sure.
but
Yes.
they've been packing appropriate lunches. They haven't been putting a bunch of junk in there. And again, then I'm just thinking, okay, now what else? What else do I have
Yes.
in my life
Yes.
that I
Yes.
do for them that they can do for themselves?
Yeah, building like putting these boundaries in place of like expectations around it, right? With a lot of cushion, right? Like
Yeah.
obviously safety things or health things, right? Like we want to have boundaries around those for, but also with cushion, right? Because it's like if your kid puts two desserts in, but they have a fruit and a vegetable and a protein, I mean, really, like, are we okay? We're
That's
okay.
exactly what happened, of course. And
Yes, right?
yeah,
Like,
it's
but
like,
it's like,
you know what? It's like, yeah, I'm so impressed you got some healthy stuff in there.
yeah,
Yeah. Might be a
right.
teaching moment down the line, but yeah, it's good for right now.
Yeah, like and just being celebrating that part. And also I love this idea of like asking our kids like how did you feel about your lunch? Right? Or like asking them about things that they do. Like you talk to that new kid. How did that feel for you? Right? Like do you want to do that again tomorrow? Like to get their pulse on that too. So it's like we can check in on these things and I think the part about parenting that is really hard is that it is time consuming, right? Doing a good job means that it is inconvenient. Like I love my children, but the parts of parenting that are probably hardest for me are when they're inconvenient, right? Like it's like I just want to like you're fighting with your sibling, I just want to step in and solve this problem, remove you guys, separate, right? Like even though there's no physical things happening, it's just that you guys aren't solving it fast enough. It's like I'm tired of listening to this, like move on. But that doesn't help, right? Like that's my probably my history, right? Like how I was raised, that's where the limit was drawn. And so I have to resist that. So I think as parents, we're growing, right? Like we're learning how to
Absolutely.
parent at the same time that we are parenting. So what do you think parents might not have thought about that impacts how our children view themselves?
I think it goes back to that, us like I think again, it goes back to our culture. Like when you do everything and you put your kids in everything and you buy your
Mhm.
kids everything, like that's quote unquote good parenting. Well, maybe it is, maybe it isn't, I don't know. But I will say that the more and more we do for them, the less autonomy we give them, the less independence we give them, the less they know how to do. And
Mhm.
again, we have, you know, young people who are going into college and, don't know how to call and ask for a doctor's appointment.
Mhm.
And, or they don't, there's just simple things they don't know how to do because they were never allowed to do it or never taught how to do it. And
Mhm.
so I get that. Like that, I get how we're just trying to be good parents and it's a hard job. But sometimes I
Mhm.
do think we have to step back and reflect. Are we
Mhm.
doing too much? Are we giving them the skills they need to be independent adults? Or are we doing everything for them? And it's sometimes you really just have to take a step back and assess and try
Yeah.
to, and I know it's I will be honest, as a parent, it creates a little bit of anxiety in me to let my kids try something new, or, like now I'm allowing them, they can go hang out wherever they want in the neighborhood as long as they stay within a certain boundary.
Mhm.
This is new for us this year too. Makes me a little anxious. I don't know why, because it's always gone really well. But it's something new. And I think as a parent, you have to be, maybe I'm just a little bit more anxious than other people. That's very possible. But we have to be um comfortable with a certain level of anxiousness in ourselves, or
Mhm.
maybe it's not even anxiousness, maybe it's just uncertainty,
Yes.
and we have to be comfortable with that to
Mhm.
give them these opportunities. And then they, most of the time, they will do great. And
Yeah.
then we have to reassess and think, why was I even nervous to begin with? Like,
Mhm.
or even if it doesn't go perfectly, did they learn something from that? If it did go wrong, yes, absolutely. And then
Mhm.
how do your kids feel after they're given these independent opportunities? They feel great. They feel competent. I have seen instances in my kids like that, you can just tell they're so proud. You can tell in their body language. Their feet are a little lighter, their voice is a little bit happier, and
Mhm.
you can just tell they feel a little bit more confident today. And that's because I dealt with a little bit of an uncomfortable feeling to allow them to do something that I know they can do.
Mhm. Well, and I think our anxiety can become our kids' anxiety if
Oh,
we do not allow, like, if we don't tolerate that part, right? Like, whatever it is, to let them take some risks to, and like, if you know they have the skills or we're budding in those skills and you're there still, right? Like, you're still there. And I think this is something that's hard when you were raised by an anxious parent, then you're a more anxious parent, right? And then, that anxiety can keep going. But like, I don't know about you, but I definitely don't want to pass down anxiety if I can help it, right? Like, that's not something a gift that I want to keep on passing
right,
down. Like, obviously we need anxiety to keep us safe in certain circumstances, but I think it is way bigger than it needs to be generally in our society. And I see that in our teens of like not willing to take risks. Don't, like, how do you even talk to anybody, right? Like, and all these different things. And it's like we have to create those opportunities, and especially when they're young. And even if you have teenagers, you could still do it now. Like, there's so many things that you can teach your kid to do, but like, it's cool when you go to college and you do know how to do your laundry, right? It's cool when you go to college and you do know how to order your food. It's cool when you go to college and you do know how to get money out of the ATM. It's cool when you, right? Like, all of these things that are really good skills, but we have to teach them. We can't just like, oh, shoot, you graduated from high school. Now I'll teach you like 27,000 things. Like, that's overwhelming. So it needs to be a process too, to not amplify their anxiety. And so the sooner we're creating this independence of like, you can pick out your own clothes, right? You can put on your shoes. Like, my 2-year-old will be like, I can't put on my shoes. And he just has little like slip on shoes. And I'm like, oh no, you can. Like, I'll watch you. And then he'll get them on. I'm like, oh, you did it. That's amazing. And so then he'll be like, I put on my shoes. Right. Like, and so
yeah,
then he's demonstrating that when I'm like, okay, everybody get your shoes on. And before it was, I had to help him get his shoes on. But now, thankfully it's summer and he can just slip his shoes on. We don't have any tying involved, or it's not more complicated shoe yet. But it's like, yeah, and then that's building confidence so that when we do get to fall and we do maybe need like a tennis shoe kind of situation, that he can also do that because we built the confidence with the other shoe. So it's like this building process. And I think sometimes parents don't realize that building piece. So what do you think is the key to raising confident kids? We talked about a lot of things, but like, to review, like, what do you think it is? What is the keys to raising these confident kids?
well, first, I think, I mentioned this a few different times, but I really think unsupervised outdoor play and unsupervised play with peers teaches kids how to handle challenges and gives them the skills to solve problems without adults constantly intervening. When my, kids are having an argument, mom, so and so did this. Well, that doesn't involve me. That is a problem you have with her. So you need to go back to her and figure it out. If you can't figure it out, come back and help, and we can talk through it. And I'd love to hear what are your ideas on what you could do to resolve this? Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. Go ahead and do it. So first of all, just that unsupervised play is going to be important. And I know that hasn't really, people aren't feeling comfortable with that right now. But we also have to think about, as parents and caregivers, when we grew up, our parents they definitely allowed us all of that. But then also they didn't have the internet and social media and 24/7 news to hear everything in the world. Like, I think we just assume that the world is much, much unsafe, much more unsafe than it was when we were kids. And that's simply not true. We just have more media sources. So it just creates this notion that things feel more unsafe when they really aren't. So unsupervised play and allowing kids to be autonomous to some degree is going to be really important. But then also, the other side of that is attachment to an adult. A safe adult is going to be critical. And so, having, especially when parenting teens, it's like a two-sided coin. We have, on one side, teens are trying to gain independence, but they're also trying to get connection. And so what we really have to think about whenever our kids have some kind of behavior and we're trying to figure it out, there's always something underneath that behavior. And it usually is a bid for independence because they want to be able to do things on their own, or it's a bid for connection and they need that attachment to somebody. They need that reassurance. So I think that's really important too. And I have found when we give young people an opportunity to do something new or try something new or gain a new skill or work through a problem on their own, they usually end up figuring it out. And then that's an opportunity for us to be able to praise and notice what they did and how hard they worked and how challenging it was. And then that's another opportunity for us to reinforce resiliency and all of those skills that we know are important to be healthy and have a successful, long-lasting life. And so, also I think, along with that praise, trying to focus, not praising natural abilities, but praising effort, praising trying, so then that we're giving them that confidence to maybe if it didn't work out this time, you're going to be willing to do it the next time.
Yeah. Yeah. To praise that hard work or the effort. Yeah. To do that. That totally makes sense. Because I think when we don't have to work for it, then that almost creates, excuse me, some future challenges. Because it's like, well, if I have to work for it, then there's something wrong. Right. So it's like, that makes a lot of sense that we want to praise the hard part. Like, you did this, like you were brave, or you tried something new, or that's really cool that you went out there and didn't know anybody on that at that camp or whatever it is. And that part of doing the hard, then that reinforces the hard, like how valuable doing hard things is.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then that allows us for confidence. Yeah. It's a perfect cycle. Yes. Okay. So what do you want parents to take away? We kind of have said this, but what are the like real strong nuggets that you want them to like really take away from this conversation that we've had?
If you feel like you're a parent that has done a lot for your kid, or just, I guess maybe you don't even realize it, but I guess what I would encourage everybody is, our culture has kind of, led parenting in this direction. So some of the things that I'm suggesting are kind of against the norm for this time, but I guarantee it, in 10 years, we will be seeing more of these things. Schools are going to be running in this direction. The federal government and their guidance that they give to different entities will be going in this direction too, because the science is just leaning this way. I mean, it's telling us that we are too overprotective and it's doing young people a disservice. So what I would say is, allow your child to do something you normally wouldn't. Let them go play outside, and again, this is in the context of, some safety, but maybe not as much surveillance or oversight as you
Mhm.
normally would do. Like, let them do these things. So maybe give them some tips before they go, or ask them how they're going to approach it, and then praise them for
Mhm.
that approach, and then let them
Mhm.
do it. And even if that is maybe too uncomfortable, then we could even back up and, even some of the things I do on a day-to-day basis, like getting stains out of white shirts and like just like stuff like that. Like sometimes I'll be like, "Hey kids, come here. First, this is why I'm doing this. Do you want stain? Do you want do you want to look like you have a dirty shirt on? No. Okay. So first we put the spray on wash on, then we do it. And I realized I wasn't explaining what I was doing, and they need to know this stuff. And I
Mhm.
don't care if they're 10 and they don't need to know how to wash clothes right now. Yeah, maybe they don't, but they can. So if they
Yes.
can do something, we
Mhm.
should let them.
Mhm.
If just think like if in your place of employment or in your personal life, if people don't think you can do something, that makes me so mad. I mean, if someone doesn't think I can do something, oh,
Mhm.
watch out, and I know not everyone is like that, but we just need to have this. We need to be able, as parents, to put some of our own feelings aside for a little bit, our own nervousness. And we need to just have confidence that our kids, this is the right thing to do for our kids, that they
Mhm.
are. I mean, they're amazing people. Kids are like the stuff that they come up with, the stuff that they're able to do is so amazing. Let's let them doing everything for your kid and making it this safe bubble that nothing bad will ever happen. I mean, I understand. I don't want anything bad to happen to my kids, but also having that mindset and not allowing them to have a little bit risky situations.
Yeah.
When I see them do flips off the side of the pool, it makes me nervous, but that's what they need to do as kids. They need to try things. They need to be a little bit risky. They need to ride their bikes a little too fast, play a little too rough, climb a little too high. These are
Mhm.
the things they need to do that will make them feel good about themselves. And,
Yes.
it's a every day as a, me as a parent, I haven't gotten this right. There are times I think, oh man, why did I spend my time not doing that? I need to let them do that next time. Or sometimes I'll just even take a quiet weekend afternoon and think, okay, like what else could I let them do? Going and I'm now going to start. I'm going to give you $20. You need to get three things in the store. Go find them,
Mm.
pay for them, bring them out. And
Love it.
I don't see kids in the store doing that.
Mhm.
But I mean, and I know like I just think like we just assume they know how to do things, and maybe they do, they watch us. Again, that's another point. Like, let's be good models for our children. Let's demonstrate confidence in ourselves, but also, we need to allow them to do, things that will give them the confidence that we have.
Yes. Yeah, and I think we definitely did things different when we were being raised, like, and I know that there's some things that we've learned better from. But I think there's some things that we're like, oh, we're going to do the opposite of that, and now we're seeing this ramifications of being too controlled and kind of being
Right.
this helicopter parent, right? And that, yes, the pendulum of parenting always swings. Like there are times where maybe kids had too much freedom, and
Yeah.
then we're not giving boundaries and are not talking about how to protect ourselves or to think through things that are bad that could happen, but then also like giving our kids the opportunity to try these things. Yeah, this is great advice. Kellie, thank you so much for your time today. This has been enlightening. I'm like sitting here thinking like, okay, as a parent, like I've got some assessing to do, some freedom to be given, so I'm certainly learning here. So thank you so much for your time today.
Absolutely. It was good to be here.
Thank you again, Kellie, for your time today. This was such a great conversation. I I know that Kellie said a lot of things that might be different than maybe what we're already doing. And when we think about building confidence in our kids, we want kids that are confident. And sometimes the things that we need to do as parents are uncomfortable for us. And I know that Kellie called us to kind of try doing some unconventional things based on our parenting time now. But I think the research, like she said, is supporting that we allow our kids more time that is unstructured and that it is play based and that we're not jumping in to solve all of our kids' problems because we have to teach them how to use this muscle of problem solving, right? And when we solve a problem, I don't know about you, but as an adult even, I find myself being like, yes, I did it. Like that turned out really great. I'm really proud of myself. And that is all about what confidence is all about. Like, we feel proud of ourselves for doing things. And so we have to give those opportunities, or we are going to raise children that are needing us more than they need to. And we obviously want to be part of our kids' lives, but by allowing them the independence to practice some of these things, we're actually going to create healthier, more confident, more resilient kids that are going to actually come to us when they need something, because they know that we trust them and that we believe in their abilities, and they're going to take bigger risks and live even more successful lives. So, with that, I'll say thank you so much for your time today. I hope that this conversation has been enlightening for you and open your mind to some things that you might be able to adjust as a parent to help build your kids' confidence. Please continue to rate and subscribe to our show. Like us on Facebook and Instagram and YouTube, and also send us emails. We are going to be doing some episodes coming up where you are going to get to ask questions to the professionals. And we have a whole bunch of professionals who are excited to answer questions. So please email that to us. Any questions you have for a professional or a specific episode that you would love covered, to accidentalexperts@gmail.com. Thank you so much again for your time today. Have a fantastic day. Some words from our legal team.
The information presented in this podcast is not intended or implied to be a substitute for appropriate professional advice, diagnosis, or treatment. All content, including text, graphics, images, and information contained on or available through this podcast, is for general information purposes only. This podcast makes no representations and assumes no responsibility for the accuracy or information on or available through this podcast, and such information is subject to change without notice. You are encouraged to confirm any information obtained through this program with other sources and review all information regarding any condition or treatment with the appropriate professionals.
What we're saying is, yes, I am a real therapist, but I'm not your therapist.